Well, howdy folks. Look at this. I've just emptied my bank box. And if you're one of those people that carries so many fly boxes, sit back, relax, and I'm going to simplify everything for you. And if you're just starting on your fly fishing career, well, this is what you need to listen to, because rather than carrying thousands and thousands of flies and sitting on a bank, scratching your head thinking, what can I put in now? Well, I'm going to simplify things for you. First of all, let's have a look. These are worms, a full box of different colour worms. We've got nymphs, we've got buzzers, we've got the lures in different colours. We've got more lures, damsels, montanas, etc. We have got blobs, we have got bung flies, and then I carry a load more other boxes with massive selection of flies. So where do we start? Now, if you're just starting fly fishing, don't go down that rabbit hole of buying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flies, because honestly, you're not going to know what to do with them, when to put them on, how to fish them. So let's simplify things really, really easy. Only two things you're trying to do. Number one, you're trying to get an aggressive response from the fish. So you're looking at lures. They can be big lures, they can be small lures, they can be mini lures, they can be weighted, they can be unweighted. The thing is, small still waters, gold-haired damsels, things like that. So you can buy, here we go. There's one lure box. There's another lure box. Do I need all these? Maybe, maybe not. As a competition angler, yeah, you do need those variations, because little subtleties in flies can make a difference from catching and not catching. But when you're starting out, let me give you a piece of advice, and I've just done a quick box. So this is what I would suggest for a beginner. So if you look at this, I've just got a row of lures. We've got damsels, we've got hot-head damsels, we've got a red hot-head damsel and a chartreuse bead and a blue bead. Then I've got some Montana type flies, black and green, and then I've got some cat's whiskers. Now, as a beginner, what's a Montana? What's a damsel? What's a cat's whisker? Guess what? You don't have to know the names, because the fish don't, so who cares? But if you're fishing lures on a small still water, try one colour, you might get some reaction, then it slows down. No takes, no interest. Change your colour, change your luck. So that's why I've said, look, right? White and green, cat's whisker. The black one, Montana, black and green. And then we've got the olive damsels. So those are your lures, right? So you don't need hundreds and hundreds. Just have a variation of colours and change them very, very often. Then we go on to sort of the nicer side of it, the more imitative. So we've gone from the fish being aggressive towards your fly because it's coming into their territory and they're going to attack it. Now we're trying to imitate the food that they're feeding on. So let's start from the bottom. We've got the buzzers or the chironomids. So if you look at a buzzer, it's really, really slim. Sometimes called super glue buzzers, epoxy buzzers. Basically what that means is that it's just been covered in super glue, or it's been covered in epoxy, or it's been covered in varnish. And what I've done here, I've put about half a dozen or so together, different sizes, different colours. So we've got a black, an olive, we've got what they call a very popular one now, which is called the Vicar. Originally when I saw this, it was the Karen buzzer. And we came across it when the Scottish bank team were using it to very, very effective fish catching fly. So that's evolved, so it's now the Vicar. It has a pearl collar, you can get one with a gold collar, you can get one with a red collar. Do you need all of them? No. Small selection of buzzers. Then we want to imitate the little insects that are swimming around, so we're looking at nymphs. So the nymphs, probably the most sort of popular one is called the Dialbach, or as it's properly said, Dialbach, little devil. The problem with this, if you chose every Dialbach that's available on the market, you're probably going to get between 40 and 50. The original one was a gingercock hackle, peacock curl body, that with a copper rib, and then a throat hackle of the gingercock hackle again. That was it, right? Now there's variations. You have them with red holographic rib, you have them with silver holographic rib, gold holographic rib, green holographic, black holographic, you have them with jungle cock cheeks, you have them without jungle cock cheeks, you have them hotheads. Look, have 3 or 4 different variations. And then we go on to a brilliant still water pattern, small and large reservoirs. The hares here, it covers a multitude of sins, but it's also like a freshwater shrimp. So we've got some hares here just in the middle there. And then we've got crunchers, or magnets as they were called. Basically, it is like a pheasant tail with a hackle on. That's it. Again, loads and loads of different variations. Get a black one, get an olive one, get a natural one. And then we've got the olive nymphs, which represents the small damsels that are swimming around in there. So that will cover the insects. When the buzzers then reach the surface, you then have to look at what we call fishing on the surface, dry fly fishing, and we fish what they call a shuttlecock. Now, if you look at that, what would happen is that the body would sit in or under the surface, and then just on the top, you just see the CDC feather up there. That is the insect trapped in the surface film, trying to get out, but it's just trapped there, and the fish will sometimes just sip it underneath, or sometimes they'll just go over the top of it. Once they actually go, hatch, land, we're looking at dry flies, hoppers, right? So if you can see that one, right, that is a Midas, it's a claret and red Midas. So we have half a dozen different shuttlecocks, half a dozen different dries in different sizes, and you don't have to be an entomologist. Have a look at the insects on the water, catch one if you can, if they're flying about, and then try and sort of represent something in your fly bus. Look similar to it. If you haven't got the exact colour, don't worry, just sort of concentrate on the size of the fly. And then the other one, the Marmite thing in the UK, the bung fishing. Now, bung is basically just suspending flies underneath a strike indicator. And the great thing with that is that the fly stays at that level. For small still waters, you can fish 1 fly underneath, 2 flies underneath. Large reservoirs, they will fish 2 or 3 underneath. And it does depend on the depth of water that you're fishing. But also on small still waters, we have these things, all right? We've got chenille worm, and we have egg flies. Right, I used to use egg flies when McFly foam was out, and because the body was so solid, you used to lose a lot of fish. But now with the ecstasy material, it puffs out in the water, and as soon as the fish takes it, the whole thing collapses, so you always get great hook set. So with that, if you're going to fish small still waters, get 3 or 4 different colour eggs, a couple of worms. I mean, I put 2 in this box. That's my box. So I've got different colours, different situations. And as I said, the fish seem to get used to a colour, and change of colour can be change of luck. And then we have got boobies. Now be very careful of boobies, especially on small still waters. Quite a few small still waters don't allow you to fish them. Why would you fish a booby? Fantastic for the washing line. Now, basically, a washing line is just where you hang. So you put the booby on the point, so you put the buoyant fly on the point, and you can put a nymph underneath. So if the buzzers are sort of close to the surface and they're about to hatch, then having the booby there on a floating line, you can suspend your nymphs closer to the surface. It's called a washing line. It's very, very simple. But if you can't fish a booby on the water, you might be able to use a fab. Now, what's a fab? Well, basically, it's a foam ass blob. So basically, it's a blob, but with a foam in the back end. Works exactly the same as booby. Holds it up. Now, some fisheries won't allow you to use a fab. You can use a shipman's buzzer with foam in the head. So you're fishing nationals. You could even put a hopper on there and gink that up so that stays on the surface, and then the nymphs are just underneath. So we've got a couple of mini lures as well. So if you're just beginning, right, here's the rule. Go for it. Half a dozen to a dozen lures. Half a dozen to a dozen nymphs. Half a dozen to a dozen buzzers. Then small still waters, the bung, eggs and worms. Then If you want to fish the more naturals and now washing lines, you can look at the boobies and then the fabs, or remember the dry flies as well. So that is a small selection of everything that I've actually spoken about. And to be honest with you, I'd be quite happy to go to any still water and fish out of that box. So if you're just starting on your wonderful journey into fly fishing, don't get into this headache. Keep it simple, keep it compact, and every time you go fishing, if you find a new pattern that you haven't got in your box, or if a fishery or owner or manager or the staff say, oh, you need a couple of these because they work, try them. If they do work, then increase your selection of flies. So what you're doing is you're increasing your selection as you increase your knowledge. And that way, next time you open your fly box, you'll know exactly what fly to tie on and make sure you catch a few more fish.